My old boss got me fired from my new job. A couple of years ago, when I first came out of college, my first, I guess you could say, adult big boy job was a newspaper writer. And I got hired at one of the local dioceses in the northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. And that was a big deal for me. I grew up kind of a product of the Catholic Church and the local diocese. I felt like it was a cool opportunity because they told me they wanted me to start social media and stuff. And I think everybody knows when you go in for those initial interviews, the role of the job is one thing, but you're trying to get a feel for like your bosses and stuff. And the person that was going to be my boss, she seemed fine, but there was like you could tell there was like an odd vibe coming there. And the first couple weeks of the job were fine. I was like writing stories for the local newspaper and stuff, like whatever. And then there was just a sudden turn that was taken. And she was, again, it's nothing personal with her as a person, but as a boss, she was just super paranoid. Like she thought I was conspiring against her because I was friends with the priests and bishops. And it's like, for a lot of people, that's like weird that I like talking like friends with priests and stuff. But like for me, they were the only guys that were anywhere near my age or had any relatable conversation to have at work. Like it was just what it was at the time. And my boss just got super paranoid. Like she thought I was like contacting these people outside of her permission. She told me I couldn't leave to go get lunch without consulting her and telling her where I was going. It got so bad to the point where like I couldn't even go take a dump without her being like, if you're going to leave your office, you need to tell me what you're doing. And like, you want to be a dick, right? Like, oh, I need to tell you if I go wipe my ass. Like, is that really what this is? Like, hey, I'm going to take a shit just to let you know. Like, it was really odd. And I just kind of got tired of getting attacked and blamed for everything. And I guess the part that bothered me the most is all my coworkers had told me that she was that type of person. And like just again, nothing personal to her, but as a boss, she was just super paranoid, like worried about people trying to undermine her and take her job and stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe if she wasn't so crappy and didn't treat people like this, then she wouldn't have anything to worry about. You kind of make your own bed type of thing with that type of stuff. And she'd have all these weird one-on-one meetings with the bishop, and I'm like, at this point, I don't even know what the bishop, who would be like the president of the company of the diocese, thinks of me. Like, I'm sure she's saying all kinds of negative stuff. And at the end of the day, if I were to go file like a formal complaint or like a workplace harassment thing, it's her word against mine. She's my boss. Like, what leg do I have to stand on? And at the end of the day, like, I didn't want to start a bunch of drama within my own diocese that I was a product of. Like, I grew up there. Like, I love the diocese that I grew up in, and I loved all the people I met through it. Like, I know not everybody has a great relationship with their church, but for me growing up, like, I felt like going to a Catholic school and being a part of the local diocese in a lot of different ways, like I was a product of that, and I was really proud of that because I felt like it helped mold me into the person I am. It helped me meet the people that have had a significant impact on my life, not only friends and family, but like mentors and stuff, So I was really just kind of bummed out about it, but I was just like, you know what, it's time for me to find another job. Like, I can find another job, and the way that I'm being treated here, like, it's really crappy. And the worst part about it was they had 3 people in that position in like the last 6 months. So it's like, it's pretty obvious that people are being treated poorly here, but everybody was afraid to speak up and say something, even the people who are currently probably still working there. So when I left, I wrote a letter to the bishop and just said, this is why I'm leaving. Like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks, and this is why I'm leaving, just because this woman is treating me this way, and it's just wrong. And I didn't give any specific examples or anything, and a couple of my coworkers actually wanted me, when I had my exit meeting with the bishop, to say those things, and I just didn't have the heart to say it because I'm like, I'm not trying to get the woman fired, but like, I'm not being treated right, and she's doing this to a lot more people than me. And the most messed up part about it is she's like the right-hand man to the bishop as far as media outlets and stuff go. Like, she's their PR person. So it's just messed up because you would hear the phone calls that she would take and things that she would say about just like a lot of different things. Like, the way she was telling people to do things and operate was just, it's not even, the diocese as a business aside, like, just didn't match up with the teachings of the Catholic Church. So it really bothered me, and I was just like, it's time for me to step out and go do something else. And I wanted to stay in the church because my media skills, and like, I wanted to use social media as a way to kind of promote, because regardless of what you think about religion, like, there's a lot of good organizations in the Catholic Church that do a lot of good public service for people. So I ended up going to another organization that was affiliated with our local diocese but wasn't run by them. So when I got the job, I was supposed to be their social media person, kind of their PR face, and I've never hidden my TikTok on anything. Like I say, I created a social media brand because that's what Talks with Tom is. Like I'm a social media brand. You know, that's what I am. That's what everybody's doing with these podcasts and social media pages. Like that's a normal thing now. And it's not like I'm doing an OnlyFans page or something that's like really messed up. Like I just tell stories. And sure, like are they a little inappropriate or unfiltered at times? Absolutely. But I'm just not ashamed of who I am and the mistakes that I've made, because if you really read in the Catholic Church, it tells us that basically Jesus and the church welcome sinners. Like, hey, like I'm messed up. Like I'm a fucked up dude. I've done a lot of stupid shit in my life. Like I'm far from perfect, but I'm always trying to get better. And I know at the end of the day, if I keep my faith, that I can just try to get better one day at a time. Like, yeah, I got vices and bad habits, and I've done a lot of stupid things, but that doesn't mean that I can't get better one day at a time and take those baby steps to become the person that I want to be. Like, to me, that's really what the Catholic Church teaches, is like, hey, no matter where you are in life, you can turn it around one day at a time. And I was actually really thankful for one of the old bishops that worked at the job that I left at the newspaper for the diocese, because he said, don't let working here hurt your faith. And because that was important to me, which is really eye-opening to see the business side of the church. Like, they have an image to maintain as well as a business. And I wasn't offended by anything that happened. I was more so just hurt that, like, this woman intentionally, like, pushed me out. And again, I just didn't have the heart to say anything in my exit meeting, because I'm like, what is it going to do? Like, it's her word against mine. I'm the new kid on the block. Nobody's going to believe me anyway, even though all my coworkers say the same things and are seeing the same things. I'm the only one that's willing to speak up about it, so it is what it is. So long story short, I move on to another job. And again, affiliated with the diocese that I worked at, but didn't directly have to follow their orders, so to speak. Because the diocese is like the government of the Catholic Church. So like, if you're affiliated with them, you can get some of the perks and benefits without having to like listen to all the rules and stuff that they have in place. Long story short, we're doing like a 150-year celebration for the organization that I'm working for. And again, I've been there like a month or two. They have our old newspaper staff come to the building to tour so they can help us with the story that they're going to put in the local newspaper that I used to work for. And I think nothing of it. I'm like, oh, it's good to see you guys. Like, and who knows what happened after I left, right? Like, my thing was like, I'm out. I just want to deal with the drama anymore. I don't know what came of the letter that I wrote. Didn't seem like anybody really cared. They pretty much just walked me out of the building and said, don't come back. You know what I mean? So, and I loved my new job too. They had me like making Facebook videos and stuff for them and doing stuff for their website. Like, it was a good gig and I was excited about it. But long story short, when our old staff from the newspaper comes, my old boss sees that I work there, tells my new boss to look up my TikTok, which again, I didn't hide that at all. It was out there for everyone to see. And again, it's in my resume. They just didn't look it up when they gave me the new job. So when they go back and look it up, they bring me into the office one day. They're like, hey, we've reviewed your social media. We're going to have to ask you to resign or we're going to fire you. And I'm like, I know this is because my old boss came in and told you guys about me. Like, I get that. And I can't prove that, but I know that. And even the woman who I loved, my new boss, she was like, yeah, she told us to look you up. And I'm like, that's just fucked up. Like, she went out of her way just to make sure that I was totally out of the Catholic Church, like away from any organization affiliated with a local diocese that I was a product of. Like, I'm really proud to be from where I'm from, like greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. Like, my family's here. Again, like, my whole school career was here. I'm just really thankful for that. And I wanted to use the skill set I had developed over the years to help kind of cultivate the Catholic Church and hopefully change the perspective of it. But really, unfortunately, what happened for me is I really just saw the truth of the business side of the Catholic Church. And that shit hurt. And it messes you up a little bit because you're like, I looked at this as like religious organizations that are here to help people and do the right thing. And most importantly, just share the truth. And that's just not what's going on in my local diocese, unfortunately. And like I said, you know, the initial human part of you is like, you want to be bitter and be like, fuck them. Like I did nothing wrong. Because I share stories in a true and unfiltered way, I think a lot of older people get these type of podcasts, you take them the wrong way. And I don't know if it's a cultural thing or just a perspective or an understanding thing, but like, who are you to talk down to somebody, especially like a high school or college age kid who's making mistakes or learning as they grow and do things wrong? It's like, what were you like at 18? What did you do at 16? Like, you've never made a mistake, or like you've never done something that you might be ashamed or embarrassed of in the moment, but you learn to grow from it, learn from it, and move past it. Like, that to me is like the most important teaching of the church. It's like, hey, we're all sinners at the end of the day, but all you can do is get better and ask for forgiveness. So it really just changed my perspective on the truth of a lot of religions and churches. Is like, regardless of how great it might be from the perspective of your understanding of life or the philosophies that they give you to live your life from, that doesn't mean that there's not a business side to every organization, even religious ones. And so that's just something I want to put out there for everyone who, if you have a problem with certain religions or churches, just remember that it's not the teachings and the history of those religions that gave you that negative perspective. What it really is there's people who get put into places in the business side of the church or in the teaching side of the church that might rub you the wrong way. And they might say things that are wrong or untrue, and really just, unfortunately, I think it really just damages the perspective of religion in general. It's like, if you have a poor instructor or somebody who gives you a bad perspective on it, that doesn't mean that that's the correct teaching. That's just where they're at as a business. They might have to make a lot of improvements as a business or as an organization. Like, there's strides that need to be taken on the business side of the church, in my opinion, especially in our local diocese here. So, like I said, that shit really hurt, but you learn from it, you move past it. And the biggest thing I learned from a professional career standpoint is to find somewhere where you can truly be who you are, and you're appreciated for who you are. Like, the job I have now, totally different industry, because I just, like, I need to get away from the church because they clearly are trying to push me out. Like, they don't want me around my local church that I grew up in, that I was a product of. They clearly don't want me around. Even though I'm a Catholic and I believe in Jesus and I believe in a lot of the teachings in the Bible, and I went to Catholic school, like, I feel like it's one of those things, like, I was actually proud to be a product of there, and they were like, fuck you, get out, you and your TikTok and your filth and your smut, you should be ashamed of yourself. And it's like, again, I'm just not ashamed of the mistakes and shortcomings I've had in my life, and I feel like if I share them for the people to hear, maybe you can learn from them. And maybe it is just a laugh or a, wow, I would never want to be like that kid. But at the end of the day, hopefully it's helping you take some type of positive stride in your life. That's the whole reason I started this, in addition to trying to promote my movie scripts. Because my biggest thing is, like, I have to keep it 100 and tell you the truth of my experience, regardless of the story, and tell it in its entirety, or else you're not really going to learn anything from it. Like, if I tried to give you a perspective of, like, oh, I'm this great guy who never does anything wrong, then it's like, what are you really learning from me? Nothing. So that's my spiel on all of that. And again, with the career stuff, my biggest thing is just, my biggest piece of advice is to put yourself out there 110%. Because I think in today's society, everyone's like, this is my professional self, and this is who I really am. And it's like, I understand that we have to have certain behavior and a certain dialogue and demeanor that we have to hold as a professional, but you can't hide who you really are as a person. Like even though my TikTok might be controversial at times, it's who I am, and it is a professional endeavor, because I'm developing a podcast and media brand to hopefully promote my movie scripts. So, like, that's more important to me than any job I could have. So I'm really just thankful that I was able to keep my faith and able to, kind of endure some tough times in order to find myself as a person, embrace the fact that the business side of the church has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with Jesus. And frankly, if God and Jesus saw a lot of what goes on the business side of churches, they would probably strongly disagree. So I'm just asking everyone to keep that in mind. And when you're searching for a job, anyone who's coming out of college, or even for your short-term jobs in between high school and college age, find jobs that appreciate your skill set, but also appreciate who you are as a person. Like, I'm so thankful for my current job, because they let me run with my creativity as long as I stay within the boundaries that they've set for me. They let me be who I am as a person, and they're not ashamed to have me as an employee. They love having me. They love letting me do my thing. And I think that's important for young people to learn. Is like, it's not about a check. It's not about the money. It's not about your status. It's truly about peace of mind and being happy and enjoying what you're doing every single day. Like, that's really, in my opinion, what it's all about. It's not about money or your title or what you want people to think of you. Like, it's okay to have a chip on your shoulder and want to go put yourself in a position because you feel like you have something to prove not only to the world but to yourself. Like, that's a good mentality to have. But at the same time, remember that while it might be a contradicting message, that nobody really cares. Like, you can have a big house and a sweet car and all the money in the world, but what's it really mean if you're not happy with yourself? So that's my message on here today with religion and jobs and just life in general. So, and that's a hell of a story. My old boss getting me fired from my new job. That's today's story. I hope everybody's well. We'll be back soon. Talk to Tom.
Taking shots by the lake till I can't even breathe no more, see no more. I was riding around town thinking to myself, is it gonna get